So hi guys, welcome to Disruptive Wealth Creation. Today we're going to be talking about robots. Normally when we think about robots, what we think about are humanoid robots. So you may have seen a Sophia and other sort of robots that walk around and talk and answer questions. But there are other robots. There's robots that you can find in the house, you can find them in the workplace, and you can find them in factories. Today, we're lucky enough to have Manos from Money, Whiskey and Coffee. He does lots of videos on industry and manufacturing, and I thought he might be the guy to ask some questions about robots. So, Manos, welcome to Disruptive World Creation.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all, not a problem. Okay, so so that we don't keep this video for too long, I'm going to kick in and start off with some questions. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, we know that robots have been around for a while now, but what has kind of changed in the last 20 years? Why are people now talking more about robots, and what is actually happening in the robot industry?
Well, starting off, I have to say that when I took my first robotics class in my undergrad years, programming a robot was quite difficult. It was quite an involved process, but now 20 years down the line, it has become much easier. And I'm not talking only about industrial robots. I'm talking about even a hobbyist robot that you could get from an electronics shop. It's much easier to program now, much easier. So obviously it's more democratized, if you want to put it that way. And also this translates into industrial robots being much more easier to program, and they are that way they have become cheaper for a company to acquire and put them into their production.
Right. I mean, I was going to say, I noticed that watching one of the videos that you shared with me, I noticed that one of the things that they mentioned was that whereas many years ago, it may well have taken up to about 6 months to set up a robot, these smaller robots, you can get them set up within a week.
Yes.
And not just that, because they're so productive and so energy efficient and they could do so much more, the rate of return in terms of getting your money back on what you've paid for the robot is a lot quicker. It could even happen within a year if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's true. Again, there is a large capital to invest. However, return on investment is happening much quicker now, as there are more companies that actually are producing robots, either dedicated companies or companies that were doing something else, and they are now producing robots as part of their product portfolio. There's more competition in the space, and prices have come down, and it is much easier to get a return on investment. Yes.
Sure. The other thing I noticed as well is that because obviously these robots are more accurate and they're doing the job quicker, because you can imagine if a human was doing the same job, after a couple of hours, they get tired, they make mistakes. The great thing about the robots is that they're so accurate, so there's probably less wastage, and a robot doesn't go for a tea break or a coffee break, and it doesn't want 2 weeks holiday. So you get
that's
more
true.
out of the robot.
Actually, you mentioned repeatability in quality management, and especially when we do statistical quality control, repeatability is key, because not only a human becomes tired as the shift goes on. If you have multiple shifts, different workers have different skill set. So the way each task is performed can vary massively from shift to shift, from different times within the shift. But with a robot, you get repeatability and consistency. So the only deviation you might get is the actual there is a problem with the raw material or the product, or maybe the robot is going off calibration. But you get much better results in terms of quality.
I mean, the one thing I also noticed looking at some of the videos was that these company directors are saying things like they can scale up the robot so they can make it work quicker. So obviously that means it's more productive. And also, if necessary, if they have other jobs, they can reprogram the robot and maybe move it to another part of the factory and make it do different things. So that's actually incredible, you know.
Yes, indeed. I mean, again, robots have to be programmed, obviously. A robot like the one like the ones that they have at a Tesla factory, for example, and they've named them, I think, after Marvel or is it DC characters. I'm not very much into superheroes and stuff, which are similar robots that you find in other automotive manufacturers like Volkswagen or Audi.
Right.
They expect the product to be at a specific place. They pick it from that specific place and they put it to a predetermined place.
Right.
This is the norm, let's say, but we are moving towards more autonomous robots.
Okay.
So they are, they do have a sort of AI, either locally or like generally in the factory, an AI is running, and they know when they see something coming in.
Yep.
They know what it is. They know what they need to do. What tasks they need to do. They say, "Oh, this is not a Model S. That's a Model 3 now. So that's what I need to do. That's where I need to put it. And in this particular orientation." And also, they can relay data between themselves and say that, "Oh, you know, robot next to me, that's a Model 3 coming in now. So the next robot down the line knows, oh, that's what I need to be doing. I don't need to take the parts for Model S. I need to take the parts for a Model 3 from this point and keep the process going." These are called autonomous robots. We are still some way off to achieve that, but that's where we are going towards. And this will allow companies to have very little downtime between shifting from one production run to the next.
Okay.
And obviously this will decrease downtimes and increase throughput and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I find exciting about robots is, like you say, how they've become autonomous, how you've got artificial intelligence, they've got sensors. So whereas before, when you thought of a robot or some kind of machine, it would be in a cage, locked up, and there'd be a big sign saying, "Beware, keep away."
Yes.
But now you actually have robots sitting next to you, working next to you. Obviously, if you get too close, then they stop, I suppose, or they've got sensors. But it's just the fact that man and machine are working closer together. It's quite incredible.
Yes, that's true, because there are still tasks that require a lot of dexterity that robots don't have currently. They might have in the future, but who knows? So these types of robots that work alongside humans are called collaborative robots, or cobots for short. And they do the task with you. So it's like having a third hand or a second pair of eyes. They can do repetitive tasks that are either dangerous, undesirable, or strenuous. So in this case, or they can do tasks that offer no productivity. There is the example of a cobot from ABB. I can't remember the name of the cobot now, but it's used. They had an example where it was used in a laboratory, and what it was doing, it was sorting out samples to be sent out for further analysis, while the researcher was doing what they needed to be doing, research. So that cobot was saving them time, and it's safe enough to be working next to you. As you said, they have sensors, they can stop, they won't injure you, and all that stuff.
So basically, I mean, when I think about robots and where you find them and where they work, I mean, the places I think of is, like you've mentioned, Tesla, where they make the cars. I think of Amazon, you know, where they're shifting boxes, warehouses and stuff like that. And then, of course, you mentioned laboratories where they're doing scientific experiments. Are there any other places that you can think of where they use robots?
Obviously, there is a push to use robots in more settings. There is a push to use robots in construction sites where they can do the heavy lifting. Instead of having cranes or humans doing heavy lifting, because from a health and safety point of view, a lot of injuries are done when people try to lift heavy objects. It's not that it's an object is too heavy to lift. But if you do that many times a day, obviously you will get injured eventually. So there are cobots that have the form of an exoskeleton. That basically the exoskeleton takes all the stresses, and your spine, your bones, your muscles don't really get all that fatigue, and the risk of injury is severely reduced. Also, there are companies that are using robots for 3D printing now. This way they can vastly increase the build envelope, because when you buy a 3D printer, a 3D printing machine, either as a consumer, something that you can buy from Amazon, and you can do that now. If you log into Amazon, you'll find thousands. Or as a company, will you buy massive 3D printers that are as big as my living room? They have a very specified build envelope. But when you have a robot, a robotic arm, you can increase that build envelope quite massively, quite a lot. And you can do more complex shapes. You can use different materials. There's actually a company called Relativity Space, and they are planning to build a whole rocket out of 3D printing processes. And they actually have a robotic arm that does the 3D printing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know from other things that I've read. I mean, obviously the military use robots. You see them when they try and detonate bombs or sort of identify objects that they find. So that's quite interesting. And obviously you always think of RoboCop and all this kind of sci-fi, which is great, because the imagination is good. So I was going to ask you now, sort of more sort of to do with things like, let's just have a look. So I have all my questions here. So we've talked about Amazon, we've talked about Tesla, talked about factories. So what do you think the future holds for people and robots? I mean, how do you see things developing in maybe 10, 20 years time in the future?
As I said, the push is to go towards autonomous robots, which will increase productivity quite a lot. Also, there is a push to increase, obviously, accuracy and repeatability even more. Also, robots now can relay data. So original robots, you would have to shut them down, do predictive maintenance, and see if they're okay on specific intervals. Now with a push towards Industry 4.0, you want all your machinery, robots included, to kind of report their own status. So you have a real-time idea of what needs to be replaced and when, if there are any faults reported, how far into their let's say daily quota there are in terms of production. And also we shouldn't be looking at robots, oh, these are robots, this is AI, this is 3D printing. Everything is connected in a way, and this is the new way of moving forwards, of making things and products that we use in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think people also need to recognize and understand is they shouldn't have that fear of robots. Because one of the things I've noticed and I've been reading about is the fact that the birth rate is going down. And obviously people are getting older, so there's a larger group of older people, and the young people are just not going to be able to support and work hard enough to cater for all these old people. So we will need those robots to kind of, make sort of factories more efficient or make the processes quicker, so that they can kind of like make up for the loss of fewer people. So just lastly, what I'd like to ask you, because obviously you know quite a lot about this stuff from what I can hear now. If you were thinking about investing, what sort of companies would you be looking at if you wanted to look at robotics? Which would you be looking at?
Well, the biggest companies at the moment in terms of robotics for industrial applications are ABB. They make they don't only make robots, ABB, they also make transformers for power distribution. They do make relays and fuses that you might find in your home. They make other stuff as well, but robotics is a big part of their portfolio now. Omron, you may know them. They make medical devices or imaging devices, but they also make autonomous robots. Universal Robots was a company that was making collaborative robots, but it's now acquired by Teradyne. So they're under that umbrella. And in terms of diversifying to other markets other than US and Europe and UK, Fanuk is a Japanese company that also makes robots. Tesla is one of their biggest customers, actually.
Oh, wow,
And also Kuka, Kuka, is another company that also produces industrial robots.
Right. Okay. I'm glad you mentioned all those names, because I know most people, when they think about robotic companies, that the two companies that they always think of is Boston Dynamics, and they think of Hanson Robotics, because obviously the humanoid robot. Mentioning all those, that's really appreciated. So really, that's been a great. So I've really enjoyed that. I'm hoping that we can do some more interviews. We can talk about artificial intelligence and all those other things. So from disruptive wealth creation to money, whiskey, and coffee. Thank you very much. It's been a very pleasurable interview. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.